My name is Cassata, and I use he, him pronouns. And in the words of my hero, Harvey Milk, I'm here to recruit you. And I'd like to give a little bit of background before I begin the main part of my talk, just to give a little information about who I am. And I am a singer-songwriter, so I will be playing some music for you all after I speak, and I'm excited about that. Please do not say "break a leg" to me anymore. I go to school, graduate school at Pacific School of Religion. I'm studying for a Master of Arts in Social Transformation, and I'm graduating this May, so that's super good. I grew up in a conservative town on Long Island, Secatog land, and now I live in Los Angeles, which is Tonga land, where it feels mostly safe to be trans and queer. And I am a trans person, a very proud trans person, who has had the privilege of having top surgery over a decade ago, and I'm also not on hormone replacement therapy, meaning I don't pass as cis very frequently. As you may know, cis or cisgender, that means someone whose gender and sex are congruent with each other. I've always had white privilege and class privilege, which has guaranteed me some essential resources and care that were not available to others. Acknowledging and recognizing my oppressions and my privileges is very important to me in the fight for equality and justice. Understanding my context, where I'm taking up space, and where I'm struggling to have my voice heard is very important to me as a trans activist, and also something that I've been studying quite a bit in graduate school. I need to start my talk with a content warning. I'm going to be talking about some sensitive topics here that some people may find triggering, including sexual and physical violence. And I will share some brief stories about discrimination and oppression that I've firsthand experienced, and that may be activating for some people here. I'll also be using some language that some may find offensive as well. So I realized I was queer when I was 12 years old, and soon after that I realized that I was trans. I'd met another trans person, and he was a few years older than me. Once I met him, it was like all the puzzle pieces came together, and I just knew, I had no doubt in my mind at all. And as soon as I found the words to explain my experience, I knew that I had to come out in order to be happy, and I started my coming out process. First, I came out to a group of friends that I deemed to be very safe. They were my friends at the Long Island Gay and Lesbian Youth Center, who I'm still friends with to this day. And then I came out to my parents. And then at 15 years old, I decided to come out to the entire world at once on international television on the Larry King Live Show. And at 17, I went on the Tyra Banks Show. 2009, the year that I appeared on the Larry King Live Show, was a very, very different time for trans people. Not many trans people were out at this time. I did not know any other young trans people. I don't think I knew a single trans person that was under 18 like I was at this time. There was very little resources as well. Trans YouTube had only just begun. Who's watched some of those trans YouTube videos? Yeah. There was just a few videos back then, and there was probably like 5 trans YouTubers at that time, so there was not much information. There was one website on the entire internet where I could find any information about how to transition as a trans guy, and that was called Hudson's Guide. And I said, you know what, I want to make YouTube videos too, and I joined with those trans guys and started making videos to document my own coming out process and my transition process. And at that time too, it took weeks and weeks to be able to get a chest binder, which I used to keep my chest flat before I had top surgery, because they had to be shipped across the country, so things were very inaccessible back then. And when I would tell people that I am transgender, they would say, "What does that mean?" They would think I was talking about transportation or trains or something. They had no idea. There was not even a basic understanding of the term back then. And I would tell them that even though I was assigned female at birth, I was male in my head, my heart, and my soul. And I still feel that way to this day. And as far as surgery went, there was 6 top surgeons in the entire country to choose from. That time I felt like that was a lot to choose from. And I'm sure many of you now know that there are thousands and thousands of trans content creators, and probably hundreds, if not thousands, of surgeons that will do gender reassignment surgery. I think almost every state there's probably surgeons. Public consciousness of trans people has shifted an incredible amount over the past decade. And when I started touring with my music back in 2009, mostly only queer and trans people would come out to my shows. Now there's just as many allies as there are queer people. And at a recent show that I had in rural Arkansas, in Hot Springs, Arkansas, I asked allies to sing one line and then trans and queer people to sing one line, and I had them like go back and forth, alternating. And to my surprise, just as many queer and trans people as allies were singing, just as many allies were singing. And I was like, wow, even in rural Arkansas, allies are showing up for our community. And that really filled me up. Well, I wanted to share that with you because right now we are experiencing so much hate from the outside, but I also feel so hopeful because I am seeing more support and love and more allies than I ever have before in my life. And I share my comparison of how things were when I came out to now because in many ways things have progressed for the trans community. There are more resources than ever. There are hundreds of websites where you could find information. There's also thousands and thousands of people to reach out to and connect with. And really, everyone has heard the term transgender by now, right? Has everyone in this room heard the term transgender? Yes. Great. Prior to my appearance on Larry King Live, I thought that I was only going to share my trans experience to the people that I felt were really close to me because it would be too much of a burden for other people. And really, when I was thinking that, I was putting their happiness before my own. But my happiness matters, my truth matters, my transness is not a burden, my authenticity is not a burden. That call to go on Larry King Live, it changed my life forever because it ended those feelings of isolation that I was feeling, and it helped connect me to others that had similar experiences to me. And now I was visible to the entire world. I went from feeling so alone in my experience to knowing that my community was all around me. And I witnessed more and more people coming out, the community growing, becoming more resilient. The visibility resulted in me receiving letters from trans people from all over the world of all ages and backgrounds, and I still have a box of those letters because they mean so much to me. And those letters, they all shared similar messages like, before I saw you, I thought it was just me who felt like this. I'm so relieved to know that I am not the only one. I have never seen another trans guy before. And I related to those messages because before I got those letters, I thought I was the only one as well. That massive visibility, it also came with some pushback. Now my high school knew, and they did not want me to use the public bathrooms for the entire school day, or go to gym class and change in the locker rooms, which led me to being thrown into the role of an activist, a 14-year-old activist. And as I organized petitions and led solo walkouts, I remembered that I had to do this in order to be authentic and in order to survive high school. I didn't realize that what I was doing just to survive was creating positive change in my school and in my local community. And when I graduated from Bayshore High School, all of those changes that I had made in my community, that I had to make just to survive, all of those battles that I had fought, they added up, and I won the first ever Harvey Milk Memorial Award at 17 years old. Thank you. Politician and activist Harvey Milk, he also graduated from my high school, and he taught me to never blend in. He taught me the importance of visibility. And I hope to share some of the importance of visibility with you here today. Visibility brings about change. Visibility fuels the revolution. Visibility fuels the transgender liberation movement. Trans people have become more visible than ever. That is one reason for the hateful pushback that we are experiencing. It is a sign of the revolution. We have become so visible that they can no longer ignore us. We've become so visible that now they want to silence us or erase us. In the beginning of March of this year, at the CPAC conference, a mainstream Republican gathering that I had never heard of until this statement, a speaker called for the eradication of transgenderism. Since then, not one Republican leader has denounced this genocidal statement. This language is strikingly similar to language used by Nazis leading up to the Holocaust. Let me tell you now, trans people will not be erased. Queer and trans people have always existed, and we will always exist. These laws, they may temporarily set us back, but they will never erase us. This year alone, over 435 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced. As of a few days ago, 21 of those bills have passed into law, and more will unfortunately pass into law. Most of these bills target queer and trans youth. They take away basic rights like being able to read certain books, the ability to come out in school, to play sports with the other kids, to use public bathrooms. And the most evil, they take away our right to health care, something that every single person in this country needs and deserves. It is systemic evil to strip any person of care. It is genocide. According to the Trevor Project's 2021 study on LGBTQ youth are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. 1.8 million LGBTQ youth ages 13 to 24 have seriously considered suicide each year in the United States, and at least 1 attempts suicide every 45 seconds. every 45 seconds. The Journal of Adolescent Health found that transgender and non-binary youth were up to 2.5 times as likely to experience depressive symptoms and seriously consider suicide and attempt suicide compared to their cisgender LGBTQ peers. According to the Transgender Law Center, nearly 1 in 4, that is 25%, of trans youth in the United States live in states that have already banned trans care. Bills banning trans care have been introduced in almost every single state. These bills also attempt to ban trans surgeries, life-saving surgeries. And I would love to share a little bit about my experience. At 18 years old, as a teenager, I got my top surgery. I'd waited, suffering every single day for years, wearing a chest binder, unable to breathe deeply, unable to feel confidence, unable to feel happiness. Top surgery was an act of radical self-love for me. It stopped me from hurting myself. It stopped me from being one of those youths in those statistics. It saved my life. It made me want to live again, and I'm still here because I was able to get my top surgery as a teenager. And the only regret that I have about my top surgery a decade later is that I had to wait so long for it. They're too young to know, they'll regret that. It's a common argument for conservative lawmakers to use against trans health care. AP's 2023 survey, which reviews 27 studies involving almost 8,000 teens and adults who had trans surgeries, mostly in Europe, the United States, and Canada, shows that only 1% on average expressed regret. The most recent study done in February of 2023 by Gender GP says that only 0.03% regret their gender-affirming surgeries. Compare that to statistics on non-trans related surgeries like cosmetic surgery and even general surgery, and the regret rate goes up to 14%, according to the National Library of Medicine. I personally have come into contact with thousands and thousands of trans people, and I have hundreds of trans friends, and I've never had one person express regret to me. Now these trans youth living in states that are banning healthcare or living where they have already banned it will have to wait even longer, and waiting for a life-saving surgery is often impossible. With higher rates of mental health issues, including suicidality, delaying gender-affirming care can mean death. These bills are violent. They are murderous. Healthcare is a human right. They cannot outlaw the transness and queerness out of us. They cannot bully the transness and queerness out of us. We must remain visible. Our visibility is activism. I'm reminded of a quote from activist Sonia Renee Taylor, where she asks, "Will we use our bodies to uphold systems of oppression or defy them?" And I continuously remind myself of that question so I could become a better activist. Am I blending in for the comfort of cis people, or am I being myself for my own comfort and happiness? Because my happiness matters more. Trans bodies are politicized. Any body that doesn't fit the white, cis, straight, able-bodied Christian model that is dominant in our society is politicized, and that includes trans bodies. Growing up as a young trans guy, I was taught that my body is the problem. I was taught that my body called violence upon me. I was taught that my difference was too much for people, so if they wanted to ask me insensitive questions or make rude comments, then that was excused. And I kept listening to these dehumanizing statements, and they sunk in. I internalized transphobia from the cis people around me, and I came to the belief that these bad things happening to me are my own fault. Why? Because I am trans. And I learned this how? When I walk into a doctor's office sick with a high fever and an infection and am turned away for being trans. When I'm bleeding from my skull on the floor, concussed at a concert in my hometown, and the last words I remember hearing before passing out are faggot, faggot, faggot. When my family member sends me to therapy to change me back because she needs to be fixed, this is not normal. I was being taught that something is inherently wrong with me. I was being taught that the violence is my fault, that my body is the problem, that I should quiet down about my trans experience, that I should live in the closet, that my queerness and transness should not see the light of day, that I should not be visible. Even with the amount of violence that I have experienced just for being trans, I am still trans, and I am still proud to be trans. Woo! Nothing can erase trans people. Nothing can take away our pride. Trans people often internalize and adopt the cis-normative and transphobic values of cis people. We do this not only to be accepted, but also for our own safety. It's survival. Many of us do this without even recognizing that we are doing it. We have to recognize this and unlearn this exclusionary belief system in order to be authentic and free, in order to be happy, to live without shame, in order to radically love ourselves one day, and in order to create systemic change. Unlearning an old belief system is one step towards radical self-love and many steps away from self-hatred. I internalized that being visibly trans was the reason that I've been beaten, raped, assaulted, discarded, kicked out, and disregarded. And those feelings weighed heavily on me for over a decade, until eventually I became empowered enough to realize that these attacks on my body and psyche are not my fault. They never were my fault. And if you have experienced similar things, it's not your fault either. Our trans bodies are not the problem. Our visibility is not a problem. The broken system is the problem. The broken system that devalues trans and queer bodies, devalues people of color, the broken system that upholds the systems of racism and sexism and capitalism, the broken system that is there to keep the white, cis, straight, able-bodied Christian male in power and control. Trans bodies are not the problem. Cis-normativity and the lack of care for trans bodies is the problem. Trans bodies are beautiful. We are filled with love, hope, dreams, visions, authenticity. It's cool to be trans. We are human, and we all deserve love. We deserve equal opportunity. We deserve kindness and respect. We deserve safety. We deserve equal rights. We deserve care. We deserve to be able to walk into public spaces without fearing for our lives. We deserve to be treated by doctors and not turned away. We deserve to be in public spaces like public bathrooms without being kicked out and harassed. We deserve to have our needs met, our basic needs and beyond our basic needs. We deserve to have the same care that the oppressor gets so easily and freely just because of their privilege and power and dominance in the body that they are in. Trans bodies are not the problem, and I didn't know that for so long. I walked around thinking I deserved violence, and I've spent the last half of a decade trying to unlearn internalized transphobia. I've spent years and years trying to heal from self-hatred. I've come a long way, and I still have a long way to go because healing is a lifelong journey. But that healing starts with letting go of shame and letting go of the idea that my body is a bad body, because every body is a good body, and every body deserves care and love. And I had to heal enough to believe that my body is valuable and loved, that my body is a good body, a deserving body, a worthy of love body. I had to heal enough to know that I am not broken because I am trans. I had to heal enough to become empowered. I had to learn that self-love is a radical act, and that radical act is a mode of activism. So, I will no longer apologize for my trans body. I will no longer apologize for existing. I will never apologize for being visible. I will not apologize for making cis folks uncomfortable while I challenge the system that oppresses me by being visibly trans, by being authentically me, by being outspoken, by waving our beautiful flag, light blue, white, and light pink, with pride. I will not apologize for challenging the beliefs that keep the oppressors in power and the oppressed oppressed. I will not apologize for correcting pronouns over and over again. I will not apologize for the scars on my chest or for changing my name. I will not apologize for calling out transphobia publicly. We are taught to hate our bodies, to blame our bodies, to demonize trans bodies, to adapt to the standards of cis bodies, and to adopt cis ideals and beliefs, to blend in with the system, or as I like to call it, the C space, I space, S space system. I invite and encourage all of you to challenge those belief systems with me. I invite and encourage you to resist the urge to blend in. I encourage you to love yourself unconditionally, to be authentically you, to love your body. I invite you to challenge the system of oppression that is holding us back, and to challenge that system with love and education. And to start doing that by radically loving yourself and realizing that you belong here just as much as they belong here. I've seen real changes happen for the trans community in my lifetime. I've been doing this for over 15 years now, and I've seen changes happening, and more changes coming, positive change. I have 100% faith in that. We are becoming more visible. We are becoming louder and stronger. So speak up, speak out, use your voice. Lift the voices of those living on the margins. This means allies too. We need cis people to challenge these systems too. Trans people may not be in every room, but cis people are. And trans people shouldn't be the only people responsible to stand up to discrimination. We need allies to stand up too, to challenge those systems of oppression. One way, one very quick, easy way to be a better ally is to introduce yourself with your name and your pronouns. Like, I'm Ryan, I use he, him pronouns. This shows trans people that they are safe with you, that you are aware enough about trans people and our movement to take the few extra seconds to share your pronouns and signal your solidarity. I invite you to join me because we are meant to thrive, not just survive. Harvey Milk says, freedom is too enormous to be slipped under a closet door. Every act of being vocal when faced with transphobia, every act of radical self-love, every act of visibility, we change the system. We march towards that freedom that Mr. Milk is talking about. I need you to stay visible with me. We must rise up. We must come together. We must organize and rally and march and non-violently protest. We must continue to lift each other up. We must protect one another. We must advocate for our rights. And we must remain visible. We have to. We cannot let fear push us back into hopeless closets. We must remain resilient. I know that many of us trans folks are scared. I am scared too. But I know that no matter what evil legislation passes in this country, trans people will always exist. We will not be erased. I will not let intimidation and fear stop me from living my life as my authentic self. So we must remain visible. For the queer and trans people in red states that are hanging on by a thread, waiting for equality, waiting for their hormones and their life-saving surgeries, waiting for their freedom. For the trans kids in Florida and Arkansas and Utah and Texas and all over this country that are living in fear that they will be stripped away from their parents. For the LGBTQ youth that cannot come out even though they want to so badly because their home lives will become more violent or they will be kicked out. For the LGBTQ that need to see the future in us so that they know that they too have a chance, that there is something here for them indeed. So they know that this is their right, that this is their body, that this is their life. So they know that they are loved and deserve to be here. Because all over this country, there are queer and trans people living in fear for their lives, living in fear at school, at home, with no safe place. And they need to see us. They need to see us be resilient. They need to see us be brave. They need to see us be proud. They need to see us be visible. They need to see us living so that they know that life is possible, so that they know that one day they get to be a queer or trans adult. So please stay visible, stay proud of who you are. I'm so very proud to be trans and queer, to have been a trans youth, and to get to be a trans adult. It is a massive privilege, and I'm so very proud to be part of this movement, and I will not stop rising up until our freedom has come. So stay true, stay you, continue to march, continue to speak up. Allies, this means you too. Trans people are not going anywhere. Thank you.